Hey, this is Dave from Stencil. I'm going to show you how to take an SVG of a bridged stencil that you get from Stencil and use it inside of Cricut Design Space. Let's start off an email that you get from Stencil, and the email says you got a download waiting for you on the page, so you click on the thing and you go to the page with the download, and you probably can figure out a way to download it. So when I download it, it goes into my downloads folder, and I see that there's a bunch of files there. I want the SVG layers, so I'm going to take these 4 layers and I'm going to import them into Design Space. In order to do that, the first thing I want to do is I want to have a canvas open, and then I want to choose Upload. And when I choose Upload, I'm going to choose Upload an Image, and I'm going to browse to that downloads directory. And when I see the SVG layers, I'm going to pick them, and I'm going to go one by one. So for each one of these, I'm going to import it. That's my first one. Let's do it again. Third one. Finally, the darkest layer. Okay, once I've got them all sitting there, I'm going to select all of them and I'm going to add them to my canvas. Okay, now see, I've got a bunch of stuff here. I've got this blue, red, light blue, and white. I actually don't want that white layer. I think I'm just going to delete it. And that's going to leave me with all these other layers. And what I want to do is I want to make sure that each one of them is grouped properly. I'm going to line them up so that I get the right picture. When I get the right picture, I want to scale this thing to the size that I want it, because you see I've got it sitting here on the virtual mat, and I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 inches. Well, this thing could be bigger than 7 inches. What I don't want to do is I don't want to, for example, take this one layer here and scale it, and then take the other layer here and scale it maybe differently, because then they're not going to match up. They're not going to match up when I paint them, and they're not going to match up when I cut them. So let's undo that change, undo all those changes. Okay, now we've got our composition here thoroughly together, and we can see that the final painted version of this thing, if I cut it the way it is, the final painted version is going to be 6.65 inches by 5 inches. I want it to be bigger than that, and I want to use the whole the length of a 12 by 24 inch mat. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that I've got all of these things selected. Right, you see they're all selected, and I'm going to make this bigger until I reach a dimension on either side. Let me just scale it down a little bit. Until I reach a dimension that's on either side of the 12, the 11 inches. So let's see, still got more space there. So when I reach a 12-inch limit on one of the sides, so I'll go all the way to 11.5 inches on that one side. As a matter of fact, I can just set it right here, 11.5, and then I've scaled these to the right size. Now, so when I go to make it, I'm going to see that each of these is assigned to a different layer, and let's see, one sorts them into mat by color. I get one mat, and it automatically turns it sideways. When I look at the next one, I get this next one that's also turned sideways, and I get the third one, which actually fits on a 12 by 12, so it's going to allow me to put it on a 12 by 12, but I could tell it manually if I wanted to that I'm on a 12 by 24 inch mat. And that's it. And at that point, I'm just going to continue and make the cuts. One thing you'll notice is that I never touched the SVG file. Like when I had that SVG file here, I just looked inside the SVG layers, and all I did was take these files and all I did was upload them to Cricut Design Space. I did not open them. I did not try to open them with the program like GIMP or Illustrator or Chrome or any of these things. I didn't try to edit them at all on my computer. I just uploaded them to Design Space, and that's all you'll ever need to do, because once they're in Design Space, you can you'll be able to change them there. You'll be able to resize them and scale them any way you want. I'm going to show you one more thing about how to import into Design Space. Instead of using the plain SVG files, I'm going to show you how to also use the special base stencil files that include registration marks. In order to do that, I'm going to go ahead and upload again, and this time I'm going to browse to the directory. Instead of looking in SVG layers, I'm going to look in that same zip file that I got. I'm going to look at the BS files, and in the BS files I see bridged.svg, bridges.svg, bridge.svg. I want the ones that say bridged with a D at the end. That one, that one, that one, and that one. I don't need the bridges files. That's a different topic, so we'll talk about that later. And I also don't need the white one, the first one. So I'm just going to upload 42bs bridge.svg. I'm going to get that one. Upload. And I'm going to get the next one. That's 343. And finally, I'll get the last one here. And again, the reason I'm doing this is because I actually want the registration marks, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So I take all these three, and I'm going to add those to a new canvas. Takes a little longer, a little bit more going on there. But you notice that there's some basestencil.com here and a number, and there's also layer 3, layer 2 of 4, layer 3 of 4, layer 4 of 4, and there's these registration marks. Each one of these, now I may have to do this again, because each one of these is unfortunately not grouped. Yes, it is. It is grouped together. That's great. So this one is grouped together, and I'm just going to make sure that they are all together, and I'm going to say attach to this one. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing to this red one. This one is here, and I'm going to click attach. And finally, this light blue one, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to click attach. And when I do that, I'm going to do the same technique for resizing them and getting them to the size, exactly the size that I want. So there's a blue one, there's the red one. Oops, having trouble getting the right hand on this. There we go. Zoom in. Just actually want the red. There we go. So that group of all of them together, now that they're roughly lined up, let's see if we can actually really roughly line them up. So I can resize them all together. And in particular, I can move them all to the origin here, where I somehow got away from the origin, and I can sort of see how big they are. So this is going to be a 12-inch wide stencil, and notice that when I have these things here, I'm also including the registration marks in the final size. So when I go to make it, you're going to see that I have these several layers. Like the blue layer fits on one mat, the dark blue layer fits on one mat, and the red layer fits on one mat. And what's important is that I have these registration marks here, and all these registration marks are going to do is help me line up the red layer with the dark blue layer and the light blue layer. Okay, I hope that was helpful. This is Dave signing off from Bay Stencil.